Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our show today is about betting on the Super Bowl. Our guests are sports bettor Frank B. and LVA and Huntington Press publisher Anthony Curtis. Gentlemen, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Hey, guys.
We're taping this show Sunday, January 27th, 4 days before we're going to post it. The reason for this is that Frank and Richard are going to be playing a secret game somewhere. To give inquiring minds some clue as to where that game will be, I can tell you definitively it will not be in Oshkosh, Oklahoma, or Okinawa. Surely, now you'll be able to figure out with that great clue. With this early date, it's possible there'll be big news regarding the game between Sunday and when this airs that will invalidate something we say. That's one of the dangers of it. But with that, plowing ahead. Anthony, in the past several years, the two of you have partnered in football betting contests with winning results overall. Did you do it this year? Why or why not? What happened?
Yeah, we've done it for the past probably maybe 4 years, and we've had quite a bit of success. Not winning a single one, but taking, I think, 2 or 3 seconds, a third, a fourth, something like that. So we're absolutely positive in terms of our result. Last week, or maybe a couple weeks ago, we went and played the big DraftKings contest, and that put a little dent into us because we didn't cash there. So that was $20,000. But even counting that, we're well ahead. This year was probably our worst year. We didn't play as many. For one thing, we only played 1 or 2. We played a couple of the locals, and we played the Big Will Hill college contest, which we did not cash it. So we did lose a little bit this year. It wasn't a banner year. We cashed a little bit in a couple of the smaller ones.
All right. In Super Bowl betting, Frank, you say there's week 1 and week 2.
Actually, before we get to the Super Bowl,
Yes.
Since you guys were in the
that
DraftKings
was
thing,
abrupt. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there was the controversy about the DraftKings thing where they didn't grade everybody's tickets. You guys have feelings about that, and what did you think? You guys actually were out there doing it, so what was your thought on all that?
Well, seeing that it was their first attempt at this, and they wanted to do it in a big way, it was a pretty ambitious project that they were undertaking. And I have to give it to them that they spent a lot of money on the contest, and they made a good attempt. They gave it a good college try, but it was lacking in a few different ways, and a lot of it had to do with technologically dealing with the bets that were going to be coming in at the contest, the rate that they were going to be coming in, the limits. They didn't really have everything all ironed out, and there came a point during the big crush when we had our own place where we had everything set up. We had all the devices set up, and Kurt had a bet that pending, settled, or the game was concluded, and now we're waiting for the money to show. And he's got his devices, and I have mine. Mine are a little more modern. Let's put it that way. So we're refreshing, trying to hit. And he goes, "Game's over. Where's the money? We want to bet this," and it's just not showing up. And we try a couple of different things. I said, "Let me try it on mine." And he was using a mobile device. I'm using the web-based, which, by the way, they have it all over Nevada when it comes to betting. Because of that, they have a lot of the sports books are web-based as well. And their websites are just like, online sports books. They're really good. They're light years ahead of just betting on the Las Vegas apps. But so we go over to my device, and I log into his account, get in there. There it is. Money's there. Go over to his account on the iPad, not there. So who knows what could be going on? What it is about the device that you're using? But there was all kind of bugs that obviously need to be worked out for next year.
Yeah, there were bugs. Overall, it was a really good contest. I mean, first of all, it was a ridiculous overlay. When you talk about equity value in contests, this one was you really couldn't pass it up. I literally have not left my office for 4 days straight in over a decade. And I did it because this was a crazy overlay. They needed something like 535 players to break even on this, and I think they had 230, something along those lines.
Some mid-200s.
Yeah. So, I mean, the overlay on this with big money, going into the prize pool was huge. It was $1 million first prize. It was the kind of tournament that you would expect to have an edge in by plowing into it where a lot of people wouldn't, meaning there would probably be a lot of dead money. But the problems were, and DraftKings did the best they could, and they put on a good shindig, and it was fun. It was fun to go and do, except it was so cold that how do people live out there? I don't know. But the bigger problem for me, we kind of saw the problems with bets settling, that something might happen there, and it became a big controversy at the end with the winners. But signing up for it was just brutal. I mean, trying to get our money in, they wouldn't take cash. We couldn't send we couldn't wire in, we couldn't transfer in.
You can't wire, you can't transfer, and you can't give them cash. What did they take? Bitcoin?
They had, you couldn't wire in from certain accounts. For instance, I wanted to wire my money in from my business account, which would, our Huntington Press account. They couldn't take it. My name was on the account. They still couldn't take it. I had to go and work out a personal account to get my money in. We thought for a while they wouldn't take cash because it was held in Jersey City, not in Atlantic City. They changed that and amended it. We thought for a while we were going to have to drive to Atlantic City at midnight the night before. I refused. I said, I'm not going. Frank's going, we got to go. I said, I'm not going. I'll go early in the morning, anything. And we were able to kind of fix it and reconcile it. So they've got a lot of things that they've got to fix there. But in terms of an opportunity, we were kicking ourselves all the way. We don't think we did anything wrong. We were in a position, both of our cards were in a pretty good position to be in position on Sunday morning, especially mine, and we lost the second half of a two-team parlay that we shouldn't have lost. We thought we won it, and the referee threw a flag, and it was one of those things, bad beat. We would have loved to have been playing on Sunday morning, but all in all, it was good, except for the getting our money in and then the controversy at the end.
Yeah, the money thing about the difficulty in the bank wire is the money that comes from the bank, the name on that account has to match perfectly your entry number. I mean, your account name. So anything off, they go, nope, doesn't work. Business into a personal, can't take it. The PayPal option, which they had said all along was available, wasn't available unless you were already had an account. You were like a New Jersey dude that had an account already and wasn't setting it up just at that time. So for a first-time deposit, no. So that was the big problem. First-time deposits were real difficult to get in. You literally, I know a bunch of guys that just went to Atlantic City, deposited, and then drove back over to Jersey City.
So, all right, so let me just finish on this. The controversy at the end was that the player who was in the lead, his bets there were only 2 games you could bet in the last day, the two NFL championship games. And the bets, was it conference, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, after the first game, he made a bet, wanted to take the lead, and the play would have been to protect himself one way or another by getting all or most of that money back in. Couldn't get a penny in because it didn't settle in time. Now, gigantic controversy over this. My feeling was, Frank and I discussed this the day before. After we had a minor problem, we saw what could possibly happen, and we said if we're playing Sunday, we're not going to put our money in a position where we can't get it out fast enough to put into, in the second game. I think that's a tournament consideration, and the people who weren't able to get their money in, that should have been considered in their thinking. And that you've got to be fast on your feet in tournaments. So I don't really fault DraftKings for that. It was a glitch, it was a screw up, but those who were affected negatively by it should have looked forward and foreseen that.
And how could they have protected themselves?
Well, what we were going to do is just to be completely safe about it. We were only going to bet on bets that would be settled in the first half or sooner, and get it over with. And then, if we needed to bet more, we would have that money available to churn through the second half if we wanted to risk it, if we thought it was necessary. But the objective was just to get our bets settled well before that second game started.
Well, also, the people that did get their money settled did it because they were playing in Jersey City and you could go up to a desk, and you guys had anticipated this?
No, I don't know that help us thing is really true. I've heard that. I've heard that they were going up and please expedite the grading of my bet. I don't know that happened. Maybe it did.
But here's the point.
Doesn't sound right.
But
though.
here's the point of that. Again, I feel kind of funny sitting here going, look how smart we were when we didn't cash.
Right.
But we talked about this too. Like, do we play out of Atlantic City or do we play out of Jersey City right there? And we made a decision. We got an Airbnb. We had free rooms and hotel rooms in Atlantic City. We didn't take them. We got an Airbnb. We paid for it to stay in Jersey City. We talked about one of us being in Jersey and one of us being in Atlantic City. We decided it would be better for a number of reasons to be right there. As it turns out, if the help desk did help, those were people who made a decision, and it was a proper decision. And all this goes into what happens in a contest or a tournament.
See, the one thing I learned from this about the whole grading thing, and I didn't know this, that when there are really big bets pending, and this is just not tournament bets, the bets are for live money as well. So, these guys are chunking $50,000 on bets. I didn't realize that those bets are hand graded. It's just what I was told. I thought that, hey, the grade comes in, New England covers, you hit a button, and it grades everybody. That's how I thought it worked. I think that's the way a lot of people thought it worked. So when I heard these stories about guys getting graded individually, the big bets being segregated from, the regular bets, that's something new to me.
So I guess the point is that every time one of these new jurisdictions opens, they're doing things in different ways. And we go full circle back to the getting the money in and entering. The reason there were so many problems, and we actually had an inside track because Huntington Press or Las Vegas Advisor is doing business with DraftKings. The deal we've talked about on this show before where you can sign up and get a free LVA and all of that. So we've got some inside, connections. And things that we were trying to do that seemed very logical, they could not do, not because they didn't want to, but because of New Jersey enforcement rules. So, that's the thing for the listeners, on this show to keep in mind. Whenever they're doing anything in a new jurisdiction, opening it up, it may not be what you're used to. It may not be something you've seen before. You have to really, really dig deep, if you're going to put your money down in something like this or anything to understand how it's going to work in that jurisdiction.
Wow, there was a lot more behind that than I thought when I moved on to the next question. I apologize and thank you for
I was sitting here going,
it.
wait, there's more.
Okay, good. So, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, Frank, you think there's two phases of Super Bowl betting, week 1 and week 2. What does that mean?
Okay, so right now, I guess you could say you're in the midst of week 1 or the tail end of it. Week 1 is the posting of the lines, and it's the week just after the conference championships. Traditionally starts out with the Westgate putting theirs up on Thursday night. Years past, it used to be actually Wednesday night, and I believe way back when it might even have been Tuesday. But okay, it's been Thursday for a while now. Turned into a big event. I remember back 10, 15 years ago when props were just almost like an underground thing. There'd be 24 guys show up, and it'd be the same 15, 20 guys you see everywhere. Now it's like a movie premiere over there. There's cameras, lines, a lot of recognizable media types, and everybody shows up for it. So it's a big deal. It's grown a lot. And this year it's exploded because of the national thing.
The national thing?
Well, yeah, the sports betting being available in New Jersey, Mississippi, all these different places. It's not, now people outside of Nevada are very interested in it because they have to start doing this. New Jersey has to start doing this, and that's the biggest place. But it just seems like it exploded this year. I mean, it's all over the TV now. On ESPN, they're talking gambling.
And lots of national newspaper and magazine articles about the Westgate putting up the props. Yeah,
right.
It's
right. ESPN was there. ESPN was there shooting. Both Frank and I were interviewed. That it should be an interesting show. I think that's gonna air on Saturday the Saturday before the Super Bowl. It's going to be an ESPN feature. So, it's a big deal, and it's getting national attention. And I know that Frank was conflicted for a while when we were in Jersey and looking around. I came back, like I said, I was gone for 4 days. I couldn't take it anymore. I was losing my mind. I had to get back. But he stayed and went to Atlantic City and poked around those sports books there. And he was telling me he wasn't sure if he wanted to come back or stay there, for the Super Bowl. And he ended up, choosing to come back to Nevada, which I think he's glad he did.
Yeah, I think I made the right choice. But just think about the hypocrisy of things right now. 10, 12 years ago, they're putting guys in jail for booking bets. Cohn from WS. I mean, all these guys, they have to get held up at airports and they're getting arrested and thing. Now it's all over. Hey, it's great. Everything's all peachy. So, how things changed in 10 years. As far as the 2-week thing. So, yeah, this week you have a different group of people that show up to bet this week than next week. Now this week it's all the sharp guys. Again, a lot of the same faces you see lining up at the Westgate, and then every place after that for the next 48 hours. What you get is all the sharp money right now. Guys have their numbers, they're already made, and they're betting the type of things we've talked about over the years. Lots of unders, lots of nos. And a lot of money does get bet right there. They were talking about at the Westgate in the 3 hours when they put the lines up, they took $400,000 worth of bets at basically $2,000 a pop. When I looked around, like places like William Hill, South Point, even Canner, it's millions of dollars that you got bet over these 3 days. That Westgate's just one. There's another 3 or 4 big places that take decent sized bets, MGM, and then there's all the other little ones that come after that. So yeah, millions of dollars went in sharp money, and that's phase 1. That's week 1. And that pretty much is winding down right now. Everybody has gone up in the last 72 hours. All the inefficiencies, not all, but because we'll talk about a few, a lot of the inefficiencies have been pounded into place. And now you basically have your market numbers heading into week 2.
Actually, you've been talking about props, but the game itself moved quite a bit. To the Patriots now, some places had them a 3-point favorite, which was that surprised me just because that's a much bigger move than normally you would see.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty strong consensus that the opening number was a little off. It should have been Patriots, a short number, and it came out Rams +1. That didn't last at all. They had Patriots at +1, they had Patriots at pick. Patriots then at the cheap money lines, like $1.15, $1.20, and then it sort of settled in at 1.5 or 2 after one day, and it's slowly risen to where now you're getting places jumping on 3, getting the action that they want, and then jumping back off. So yeah, we're sitting about basically a cheap 3 or a heavy 2.5 right now.
Do you see any chance it'll cross 3?
I don't think so. I think 3's the barrier for sure. Unless something ridiculous happens news-wise, like Gurley comes up and they say, well, he really is hurt. And
well, he has to be hurt. I mean, C.J. Anderson has been...
His feelings are hurt.
Well, C.J. Anderson was dropped by 2 teams, but the last 2 games has looked like a Pro Bowl player. Clearly, the Rams have a really good offensive line. But if you had a choice between your all-star, your all-pro guy running back and a guy who's been dropped by 2 other teams, you wouldn't be picking C.J. Anderson. You'd be picking Gurley if he were healthy.
Well, C.J.
But he's had 2 weeks to heal.
3 pretty much. He only had 4 carries the previous game, so he's really only had 5 touches against the Saints. So he's had that, and then it's going to be pretty much it's going to be a real long stretch. So we'll talk about this
okay
later.
Well, total move too. I mean, the total move too. From 59, actually 59.5 in some places, and it keeps going. Nudging down. Everyone says it's going to go up, and I saw it again today. It dropped from 57 to 56.5 in a few. Now everybody says that people are going to come in. It's going to go back up again, but I don't think it's going to reach 59. So I don't know.
No, probably not. I mean, the sharp guys will keep correcting it. And even though, like we were talking about, now week 2 comes and the public does come in and they are going to spend a lot of money, and they're going to spend a lot of money on overs because, I mean, it really does set up perfectly this year.
It's more fun to bet overs.
It's more fun to bet overs. You're engaged the entire game. You're never out of it. And last year we had a record number, not just for a Super Bowl, record number of yards gained in any NFL game in the history of the league. That was last year. It was like 1,130 some yards. The first half of this season, record offensive numbers, record numbers, points, touchdown, everything across the board, just scoring something. The public is of an over mindset, even more so coming in this year. So they're going to do their part, and we'll see how strongly the books jerk the lines, and if the sharp guys come in and start taking more unders, and we'll see if it gets back to the levels, the lines that they were when they posted them Thursday night.
So, but next weekend will be phase 2 of the Super Bowl betting. So when the squares come in and bet heavy money,
The public, Bob, let's be polite.
They come in, and then there's opportunity for sharps again.
Yeah, they could create a lot of opportunity for a lot of the basic bets, a lot of the marquee players, and a lot of the long shots, which we're going to talk about. You know, the classic bets that the APs gravitate to. No safety, no overtime in particular this year. Yeah, they'll do their part to help out, and we'll just have to see how good the prices get, to see how much involved the guys that were here last week will come back and put some more money down.
All right. So it strikes me as a coin toss bet is a pretty silly bet to bet minus 103 or minus 105 or whatever it is on an even money bet. So, Frank, you tell me I'm wrong about this.
Well, you're not wrong about that specific bet, the coin toss, but there are aspects of the coin toss that are interesting, and this is no secret, that the special teams player, Slater, for the Patriots, who will call the toss because they are the visiting team, calls heads every time. Every time, for years and years and years. It goes all the way back to his old man, Jackie Slater, who always called heads. He was a team captain, and he did it because it was, I forget the entire story. It was something religious. It was God would call heads or something like that. And so his kid does it religiously, literally. And so Patriots are going to call the toss, and they're going to call heads. Now, you can't bet that. Like, what will the Patriots call? But there are other bets, I guess, that if you sort of piece them together, they sort of create the same effect. And some guys out there know what I'm talking about, and they can maybe connect the dots and come up with something. It'll take a book making a mistake in allowing you the way that you bet these things. But
I know one way to get the best of it. If you're in New Jersey and you got a DraftKings account, I just got a thing today saying that they're paying plus 105 on both sides.
On heads and tails.
Heads and tails. So there you go. You got an edge right there. If you're in DraftKings, they're going to love me for telling you that. I haven't read the fine print yet. Who knows how much you can bet?
$7.50.
But I've seen it. You know what? I've seen it before. I had a big argument with Fezzik about this once when I first met him. That I actually saw the coin flip at Sam's Town. It was something like plus 105 or plus 110 on one side. And I know I was there. I saw it, and he swore that it couldn't be. I mean, they must have just wanted a balance. That's all I can think. But that deal's out there right now as a promo on DraftKings. You got to be in New Jersey to do it.
Yeah, but as far as the coin toss goes, it's not the choice even of what they call. It's what they do when they win the toss.
As of deferring, which
Right.
is the typical one, but doesn't have to be.
Right.
But it will be if the Patriots win.
Well, see, now that is what became interesting after the San Diego game, because Belichick, classic defer guy. Basically, he set the bar, and everybody sort of followed him on that. He defers all the time. Occasionally, like once every couple of years, he will take the ball, and it always has to do with weather, wind. He wants to have one end of the field, kicking a field goal, that kind of thing. But he took the ball against San Diego. And that, as soon as I got all kinds of texts, he took the ball. Okay. And I go, wow, you know what? If he doesn't win the toss the next game, then that's going to be the last decision he made going into the Super Bowl. Is he elected to receive? And that's going to create some doubt in some guy's mind as to what he might do in the Super Bowl. And that's exactly the way it played out. He did not win the toss last game. So the last decision on record for the Patriots, calling toss when they win, is they elected to take the ball. Let's just say it didn't have much an effect on the big guys, on the serious bettors. They didn't put much stock in it. Those kind of things, who will do what first, that would be a bet, a serious bet. You would be like investing really big money on a lot of those type of bets if you thought that there was a really good chance that he would take the ball because the Rams are going to defer. It didn't happen. So, except for one guy fell for it, and it's a bookmaker. Out in Mesquite, one of my favorite places to go, is the guy put up a prop that read, if the Patriots win the toss, will they defer? Yes or no? And he only made the yes minus a quarter. So even though Belichick is a 90-some% thing historically, he put all this weight into the fact that he elected to receive. And, of course, I gave him a bet, and he took it, and then he jerked it to 155. I don't know where it is now. But that's the only place I saw that actually had something that directly referred to the receiver defer decision.
Betting no safety is something that I know is usually positive EV and hasn't worked real well in the Super Bowl, but over the past 10 years. But what about no safety and no overtime? Those are generally positive EV bets.
Right, because they fall into the category of the long shot type bets that the public loves to take the plus money on. And therefore, you're just going to get peppered. $50, $100, $50 at plus 600, plus 700, and those bets add up. And so they drop the price, and or they gouge right from the outset. They set it intentionally low, because what fun is it to come into town and lay minus 1,100, for $110 to win $10? It's just not going to happen. The safety bet, what was it? 3 out of 4 or 5 years we had a safety after
4 out of 7, I think.
What is it?
4 out of 7, okay. But it was also 4 out of 25
and 4 out of 50. So that one sort of has flattened out, and it'll get its play. And it really was a favorite of the type of guys that we know, the APs that don't know a lot about sports betting, know that there are good bets, and they'll ask, like, what can I lay a bunch of money on? Well, you can lay a bunch of money on no safety. It's always a good bet. You can lay a bunch of money, even a little more, because it's a little higher price, on no overtime. It's always a good bet. But after that run of safeties, we got good, cheap prices on no safety, because the public, kept going back to the well. Oh, I hit it. One game, it was the first score of the game, which is a bit, bonanza. It's like 50-1. So 2 years ago, we get our first overtime game, New England and Atlanta. A lot of guys, that was a terrible day for them, guys we know, because, no matter how good they did on the rest of their bets, they took a bath on no overtime. Last year, game played out, but these last 2 games in the conference championships both went to overtime. So going into this game, the public's going, oh, man, both the last game that each one of these teams played went to overtime. Well, let's bet overtime. And as a result, you are seeing lower prices on no overtime. In other words, they know that the public is coming. They're setting the plus money low, so we're getting a good price on the lay. Now, basic strategy for the advantage player is to wait till next weekend, until the public gets here, to do their dirt, knock the price down. And that was my strategy, but I ran into a place that had it all the way down to minus 575. So I had to take that for a little bit. But outside of that, I think everybody is thinking the same thing. We're going to wait till next weekend, and whatever money you sort of have left laying around of your Super Bowl bankroll, you're going to put it on no overtime this year.
Okay.
The right price for that, so, is debatable.
Around 900? What is it?
No. I mean, in other words, more like 12, 1,300, 14. You could argue that it's like historically 1,500, but we had a lot of overtimes this year in the NFL. There was a stretch where we're getting 2 or 3 a week, and that, how much weight are you going to give that? So,
but you're expecting it to be lower. I mean, lower on the lay side this year than it's been in a long time.
Yeah, sure, it's got to be. They're gonna play yes on the overtime.
Yeah, that 575 that you got.
That was criminal.
I havenn seen that price in years.
Was that Mesquite also?
It was, yes.
All right, good, thanks.
There are rules that have increased the good things happening to the offenses in football, which is we have more touchdowns, more higher scoring, more first downs, all of that. So your historical data has to be reevaluated. But would that affect overtime? Would the rule changes affect overtime? I don't see that, but maybe.
Well, no, theoretically, the more scoring, the more difficult it is to go to overtime. I guess that would be the thinking. More chaos, more variance because we're dealing with bigger numbers. I don't think it really affects it. You know what? The field goal kickers are so good, and the strategy, the end game strategy, is so much better. The teams are better at converting 2-point conversions. Maybe that alters it a little bit, because they aim for a number and they get it. Where in the past, it was just more blocky. You didn't have for a while. You didn't have the 2-point conversion, and then these kickers now they're making them from 60 yards. So I wouldn't give it too much weight.
Okay. Prop bets always have specific players. How many yards will Tom Brady throw for? But we were talking earlier, Todd Gurley must be real tough to handicap because you don't know because how healthy he is. So how do you do that?
Well, the health thing certainly is something you have to make a decision on. I think he's healthy. I think it was just circumstance it's just a series of games where they were difficult matchups. I mean, down the stretch they played the Bears. They're, you could argue, number 1 or 2 against the run. The conditions weren't the greatest. Some of those games they didn't need them that bad. They were in the playoffs. It was sort of jockeying for position and waiting to see what another team did. And once the playoffs started, okay, yeah, now we're back to full go. But people are giving Gurley a lot of crap about the Saints game. Now, the Saints are the number 1 team in the NFL against the run. Them and the Bears are 1 and 2. They played them in the last 4 or 5 games of the season. So you got a little stretch where you got more difficult opposition leading into the Super Bowl. The Saints allow 3.5 yards a carry. C.J. Anderson didn't do any better than Todd Gurley did against the Saints. He just got more carries. One guy, C.J. averaged 2.8 a carry, and I think Gurley was 2.6. Neither one of them did anything. And I think going into the game, McVay understands we're not going to run over these guys. We're going to have to throw the ball to win. We're going to run enough to make it so that we're not so one-dimensional and they can just pin their ears back and go after our guy. So I'm not docking him all that much for that game. Now, the injury thing is a totally different issue. What you get, if he's healthy, though, is you got a rested MVP-type guy. I mean, at the midway point this season, he was the co-favorite to win MVP last year. He was debatable whether he should have won MVP last year. This is not a guy that, if he's healthy, all of a sudden has fallen out of favor to C.J. Anderson, who does have a Super Bowl pedigree, but they're going to use him. And I think you get him rested right here. And I don't advocate betting overs very often, but I mean, this guy is definitely a buy low guy right now. I have bet over 12.5 carries for Gurley, and there's a lot of variance in the market because of the question marks surrounding him. You could go out there right now and lay 12.5 minus 110 and take under 14.5 minus 110. That's a super middle, and it's just sitting there because his rush attempts, along with his yardage, along with his longest carry, are all over the place right now because there's so much uncertainty about him. I mean, he's a good. If you make a decision on him, you're going to get a price that you probably like. But if you like him, you think he's healthy and he's going to get work. Which, why shouldn't he? The Patriots are not the Saints' run defense. The Patriots are 1/10 of a yard away from being the worst team in the league against the run. They allow 4.8 a carry. 4.9 is the worst in the league. So they're going to run the ball against the Patriots. And Gurley's got it. To me, Gurley's going to get some carries. So I took him over 12.5. I haven't bought it back, but that middle is sitting out there.
Bill Belichick comes up with a different game plan against every opponent. So he can maybe take away Gurley, or he can take away any particular player. And how he does it, I'll leave for the football experts, but he'll come up with a different game plan. But you're betting into such an unknown with Bill Belichick. How do you do it?
Well, you mean defensively?
Well, defensively, he can take away any player.
Well, that's what they say. That's what they say he likes to do. Like when it comes to a receiver, they say he takes his second best cover guy puts him on their best guy along with a safety, and then takes his best cover guy and puts him against their number 2 guy. That's his sort of method. I don't know who he takes out in this game. I don't think you can take out a running back the same way that you take out a receiver without committing extra guys up front. Like they say, load the box. I think Brandon Cooks might be in a tough spot because he's played for Belichick before, probably knows the guy's tendencies. So he might be a guy. You have seen a flip on the volume numbers as far as yardage go between Brandon Cooks and Woods. And Cooks did have higher numbers than Woods, and they sort of flip-flop. So I think maybe that might be out there in the market, that Belichick may be able to defend against Cooks better than Woods. But offensively is really the question. It's always, what's going to be the distribution in the backfield? Okay, because if he thinks he should be running the ball a lot, which you can run on the Rams, who's going to get the work? It's obvious, Sony Michel's been it up to this point, but you have Rex Burkhead, who has been ramping up his touches down the end of the season and through the playoffs, and you always have James White. To me, that's the most solid guy there. He's going to be involved. James White's going to be involved because he can catch the ball. How many carries he gets? That's questionable. I get 3, 4, 5. I don't know. But, how much are they going to run the ball, and who's going to get a bigger percentage than they normally get?
Thank you. We've been talking to Frank B. and Anthony Curtis. We'll be back with them as to which are the best and worst books in Vegas to bet the Super Bowl at as soon as we have a few commercials. South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anyone else has. In February, the monthly promotion is the $600,000 Crazy Cupid's Money Madness, where simultaneously there will be 2 casino-wide progressives going. The bigger one must hit between $10,000 and $25,000, and anyone playing when it goes off without it being the actual winner gets $25 in free play. The smaller one must hit between $1,000 and $2,500, and is scheduled to be hit about 3 times a day. Any machine, any time, so long as your player's card is inserted and you have played at least $1 in the previous 60 seconds, you're eligible. The next free video poker class on Tuesday, February 5th at noon in the Silverado Lounge is 9-6 Bonus Poker Deluxe. This game returns 99.64% and may be found up to $5 play. It is similar to Jacks or Better, except 4 of a kinds pay a lot more and 2 pair receive single money instead of double money. The first class starting at noon is an introduction to the game. The second class starting at 2 p.m. is an intermediate class. At videopoker.com, it's the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get corrections on most of the game. The game of the week is simply 100 play draw poker. As with triple play, 5 play, 10 play, 25 play, and 50 play, there are no strategy changes to make 100 play accurately. There's no change in EV, although there's a considerable reduction in the variance. Given the same total bet, say 25-cent 100 play versus $25 single line, the variance in the 100 play game is something like 1/10 of the single line game, simply because you get a lot of partial pays. In a $25 game, you can get 0, or the minimum award is $25. In the 25-cent 100 play, it's extremely rare to end up with 0, and it's possible you get a score of 125 or 250 or 375, etc., always in increments of 125. You end up with fewer W2Gs in the 100 play version. On a personal basis, if the pay schedule is the same, and as far as I know there are no difference in the theoretical of the games, I much prefer to play as many lines as possible. With lower variance, my score is much more likely to end up close to the predicted EV. Plus, it's a lot more fun to play 100 play. All right, we're back to Frank B. and Anthony. Just before we went to commercials, Frank sent me a note that he has a bridge jumper he wants to talk about.
Yeah, so the type of bet, like the safety bet and the overtime bet, the kind of bet that the APs like to bet, where they lay a bunch to win, not quite so much, but it's a good overlay. I found one this year that's a lot less painful to sweat, and it's actually a better play than either of those right now, but it's only available at a couple places. Now, the bet is a little difficult to explain. It's will the Rams win every quarter? In other words, will they outscore the Patriots in each and every quarter of the game? Not tied is no good. They have to outscore them. It's pretty unlikely, but I have experience with this bet before. It happens to be the biggest bet that I've ever made, the biggest exposure I've ever taken on in one bet. I won many years ago when the Patriots played the Giants. I laid $75,000 to win $1,000 on this bet. Yeah, and the right price, and trust me, that was no fun watching the first half. But the right price was somewhere in the 120 to 130 to 1 range. And I had a lot of money left over on Sunday morning before the game started. I said, and this is one of the, you just click it in. Okay, then haven't really seen it very much over the years. And Cantor put it up for both teams this year. Now, it's a whole different thing when you put it up in a Vegas book, because having somebody walk in and lay that much money out to weigh that little is a difficult thing to do. They set the opening price on the Rams to win every quarter at minus 2,000. So you got to lay
$20 to win one.
Correct. And I thought, I was looking at the sheet and go, that looks pretty good. I don't know if I want to bet it now, but maybe I'll come back and do it. But I checked the line just to make sure it was still in there. It was down to minus 1,400. Uh-huh. I'm going, all right, did somebody bet this? Did somebody actually come up and take the wrong side of this early in the betting cycle? Because it would have had to be a not so sharp person, because that's a terrible bet.
They would have had to bet fairly a lot, right?
I guess. But I think what happens, he just realized they weren't going to get any bets, and they just dropped it because the other one on the other side dropped too. So I went through the trouble of trying to figure out how much. Cantor is real difficult to deal with, and I had plenty of money in my app, and she said I was told that they would take the same amount on the app as the counter, but I didn't trust them. So I ended up making the bet at the counter, and they didn't take what they said. They said they'd take to win 1,000, and they only took to win 500. So I laid 7,000 to win 500 on this bet. Now, in my head, because after dealing with it before, I was able to sort of ballpark what this was worth, and I said, this is about a 1 in 40 shot. And I didn't have time to go check it. I just made the bet, and then I checked with my math guy, the great Kim Lee, who helps me on all difficult questions regarding math, and he came back. He goes, I worked it out. It's plus 3,900, which basically is a 1 in 40 shot. Uh-huh. So I got, I was right there with it. And but after the bet, they only moved it to minus 1,600. And I've told a couple guys about it. Don't want to really lay the money out. It's sitting there. It's a huge overlay. But even if you're only betting to win 500, your EV is $300. So if they were to take the posted amount, which they claim they will, for 1,000, I mean, you're making a bet and you're making $500-600 in EV. It's a good place to park your money if you're of the overtime or safety, type of guy. So, that one right there, I want to throw in and lump it in there with the overtime and the safety.
And this audience probably doesn't need to be told this, but Frank says Cantor because that's what we call it, but that's CG Technologies, which is, they have books at the Palms, at M Resort, at Tropicana, where Venetian, I think,
Yeah.
So it's CG Technologies where you make that bet if you want to find it.
Now, when you made your bet, Frank, the guy at the counter probably recognized you because you're a well-known bettor. If I went to make the bet, I'm somebody the sports book basically has never seen me. Would I be more likely to get $1,000 to win 1,000 than you, or is it just? Do you think that would be anybody would be limited to 500?
Well, no. I think what happened is because if you were to bet the amount involved to win 1,000, it's a CTR. So they asked me, they're on the phone and they confirmed that they would take 1,000 over the counter. And then you could hear the other end of the conversation. Who is it? And they asked me who I am. I said, Frank. They asked who, and I told them. And I got to tell him anyway, because I'm going to have to do a CTR. So what am I? And then at that point, he said, tell him 500. So I think if you just go up to the counter and you have the money and you're willing to do the paperwork, I think you're going to get to win 1,000. And like I said, it's, you bet to win 1,000. Your EV is about 550, something like that.
So, what are the best and worst places to play in town on Super Bowl?
On Super Bowl Sunday?
No, on the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Betting between now and then, including.
Well,
Wherever the numbers are best that you want to bet.
yeah. With the apps.
If you're still allowed to bet at William Hill.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one right there. Any place that runs a William Hill, a lot of guys can't bet on the app. So they got to go to the kiosk or go into the book. So those places, they're not as attractive to the sharper bettors because they can't bet over the app. But I mean, certainly Westgate is tremendous, and I don't know about the South Point is taking. They're going to have keep adding bets as we go along, and they're a good place. I mean, anywhere that you can, like you said, anywhere you can find a good number. But the places that actually did a good job with their props. I always like to say congratulations to Aaron down at the Golden Nugget because he puts up. He gives it like an extra day of thought, but he puts up some really creative stuff sometimes. I mean, he's had bizarre things like the height in inches of the player to win to score the first touchdown, and all different types
With or
of
without
ways.
the helmet?
Is a good question, or without the mohawk. Yeah, the yearbook height of the guy. But this year he has 10 different Vegas Golden Knight props, along with a bunch of other cross sport stuff. So the best places are the places where the guys are willing to go out on a limb a little bit, offer you a little bit of variety, offer you something different, maybe something you can tie into something else that you're doing, like watching the basketball games the night before or getting up early and watching soccer. So I would say Golden Nugget, Westgate. William Hill has a good menu, and they just don't put all the props up right away. Those are three of the really good ones. The guys that don't do it very well are places like the Stratosphere. Well, I could go on a rant about the guy out in Mesquite, but that might take a while. You know what? One thing though that happened, and that I feel occurred on the last couple of days, Jerry's Nugget is gone now. They closed down last night, and they're being taken over.
The casino or the book?
The book.
The book. It's going to become a William Hill.
The Walmart of sports betting.
Yeah. So I mean, you always hate to see that as a player, an independent book. Jerry's was independent, and they had their good and their bad points. The way they treated customers and such. But they were different, so they had different lines, and they're going to become a William Hill. So Frank went in there yesterday and contacted me and said, "Put it up on the site. You can't bet the Super Bowl."
Yeah,
so,
they didn't take Super Bowl bets at all for this year.
because they won't settle. They won't settle.
They're shut down for. Until Wednesday, the Wednesday before the Super Bowl, William Hill will take over and they'll offer all their menu of bets. But it's a terrible trend that we're on here. I mean, when it comes to sports betting in the country, sure, it's expansion. And but in Nevada, it's contraction because we're getting gobbled up by William Hill. I like. I mean, I just don't need 163 of them,
How is it possible that you're still allowed to bet at William Hill?
Well, I don't bet on I bet
okay.
I bet at the window in the kiosk in other ways. But it's just that they are taking over up in Lake Tahoe, one of my favorite places, the Lakeside Inn, gone. William Hill, and I can't see a couple years from now there being anything a little more than a handful of entities. I mean, who might go next? Like maybe Treasure Island. They've never shown that they really are that into it. I don't know. Baldini's. Baldini's had an app and they pulled it from the market the way Treasure Island did years ago. So I mean, there's still a few out there that are sort of what you call independent, but they're going to get eaten up. William Hill obviously makes good deals. They buy them out and they think it's worth it, but it's not it's not good for the player.
Yeah, same thing we see with bars, the local bars getting eaten up by Dottie's. It's the same thing. You see a Dottie's, you see a Lola's, you see all the same kind of thing. Same thing with like William Hill coming in, taking over. Stratosphere was.
I think Stratosphere is a real good candidate to be taken over.
Yeah.
They just aren't into it the same way the other books are.
I thought that was in process already.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I don't know.
Okay, so Anthony, assuming you're not invited to a high roller party, if you want to go to a good environment to watch a Super Bowl with lots of other sports fans in greater Las Vegas, where do you go?
Okay, this is a question we get every year. I get every year, and the answer is always the same. I'd rather be in Vegas than at the game, to be honest with you, because there's so many choices. The easy answer is any sports book. You just walk into a sports book. I've watched several Super Bowls in sports books. It's extremely exciting. Everyone's screaming. Every play there's a result. It's very cool. And same thing with any big event. Same thing with the World Series. Same thing with March Madness. The whole thing. But I think it's really good. The alternative to that is one of the really great. Assuming you don't want to watch it at home with a pizza. That's a good one too. But
pizza's good.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Well, aren't there casinos that are giving away food to having these Super Bowl parties that are open to the public? Or?
They are, but they get more and more expensive. So that's where I was going to go with this. What I'm talking about is not necessarily. I've been to several parties. I've been to invited guest parties. I've been to those at casinos where you pay. I never like those as much. I like the sports book. The sports book where, they'll have some special on drinks and things, maybe nothing real special on food, whatever that particular casino has. But it's just the action and the environment in the sports book is great. The parties tend to be, the ones you pay for, they'll have food, they'll have drinks, but they tend to be a lot more kind of staid, right? People are sitting around tables and there's big screens, but it's just not the same vibe. The two best choices for me are the sports book itself, as I said, or the local bars that do things. Now, I don't have any great recommendations at this time because they'll all kind of reveal themselves in the week leading up to the game. When I find good ones, we'll put them on Las Vegas Advisor in the Vegas News section every day when we find something good. But if you are you'll walk into several bars in Vegas where you'll see the big board up there, the squares that people call them, playing the squares, the pools. And all you got to do there is make sure that the squares, if you're going to play that, make sure that it's a fair game, that the squares are fair, meaning that the bar is not taking money out of the pool of people who are betting these squares. That happens less and less because that's actually illegal to do. They can't do that because now they're booking a situation. So they're supposed to give them all back. For instance, one I know is Home Plate on Warm Springs. They have 2 or 3 boards every year. Everything that goes into the squares they give back, and then there's specials all over the place. And there'll be several bars like that. I just don't know which ones are going to be doing them yet. Often buy a square, get all your money back if you win, and something comes along with it. Another really good one is a place called the Sporting Life bar. They do it every year. They have a big board. They have raffles. They give things away. That's up on the west side off of Jones and the 215. So, again, I think the best thing is just kind of monitor LasVegasAdvisor.com, and when we find good ones before the game, we'll have some selections up there.
Good. All right, Frank, we got about 5 minutes. Let's assume a prop was the longest field goal was over 45 yards, 45 and a half. Now, at even money, you're going to take the over. So at minus 200, you're going to take the under. So you're going to make some number in there. I'm picking it out of my ass, 137. That you're going to. That's the fair number in your mind, perhaps. And I just made that up. It's not his number. And if it's enough over that, you'll bet one way. If it's enough under that, you'll bet the other way. How do you create that number?
Okay. Well, for the football,
without giving up too much secrets.
Well, it's not giving anything away really. Without for the football number, you're using your line, also taking into account what the market is offering. So the market for the field goal would be whatever it is right now, 46.5 over, I think is probably about where it's at. So all you do is you're going to compare that to whatever static number that they're providing, if that's what it is, if it's a static number, and if it's not, you got to try to figure out, what the range is for that number. It's just another variation on cross sports, which, by the way, this year I encourage everybody to take a close look, concentrate on those. Those are the ones that are the most interesting. B, the ones you have 2 different things you have to make a line for and compare them to each other, and the characteristics involved with each side of the bet can differ greatly. And we've talked about in the past when you have. Let's take your example. The really good ones that are going to occur next Saturday night are the NBA ones that go against the Super Bowl. And a lot of these NBA ones, they're pitting one player against an entire team, a football team. For example, Harden points, plus 9.5 against the total points scored in the Super Bowl. Well, the Rams and the Patriots aren't getting that injured that they cannot continue in the game. Harden could. He could get in foul trouble. All kinds of things could happen. And it's not, let's talk about him specifically. I'm talking about a general concept. And when you have an individual going against, which things could happen, he could get hurt. Game flow, like for LeBron is playing Saturday night. They're playing the Warriors. It is the marquee game in the NBA Saturday night, and you're going to get a lot of cross-sport things referring to it. LeBron's coming off an injury. Let's say the Warriors are woodshedding him in the third quarter. Is he going to play the fourth quarter in a pointless 12 minutes of play? Probably not. But if you're hitting him against number of first-half points in the game, his points, well, one is a certainty, and the other is not so much. So kind of follow that basic strategy when you're looking at the cross-sport stuff. Say you want to look at things that I can bank on, like the whole team versus an individual. And there are some great ones that are out there now, and others where you can see what they're going to offer. They just haven't posted them yet. And one that I'm concentrating on is going to be James Harden. James Harden is on an epic scoring blitz, setting all kinds of firsts, number of games in a row, achieving a certain point level. What was the goofy one that was bizarre? The one with the assists.
Oh yeah, he had scored something like 165 or 200.
No, 298 points.
Right, without all unassisted.
None of them came via an assist from another player. It's incredible, and that's going to come to an end tonight. Well, tonight we're talking this week because Chris Paul comes back. He's not going to handle the ball to the degree that he has been now that Chris Paul is back. Chris Paul is a point guard. Harden's still going to handle the ball, but not to the same degree. So things are going to start to go back to normal levels when it comes to James Harden. And you see this effect in the NBA a lot where the inclusion or exclusion of one player in the lineup significantly affects another player's performance. We have a couple group of us have been following Kawhi Leonard throughout the year. And he sits a lot of times, especially on a back-to-back. This is just an example of the effect. And when he sits, Kyle Lowry, his assists go way up to the point that he won like 8 or 9 bets in a row if you're betting his assists over. And I think Kawhi has sat 15 games and Lowry's gone over 11 out of 15. And when he misses by like half an assist. So that same effect is going to take place when Chris Paul joins the lineup and James Harden cannot touch the ball as much as he has. So I think getting on the Harden props right now, fading Harden is a real good play before Chris Paul gets in there a couple games and the Saturday NBA game rolls around and they say, okay, he's having an effect on Harden's output. So that's what as soon as we're done here, that's what I'm going to go work. I'm going to go make some anti-James Harden bets. But that's a good cross-sport thing to concentrate on. That's
surprising to me that the books wouldn't have taken that into consideration.
Well, I looked at the lines at that they're putting out, and you can infer the line that they've made for Harden, and they have him, upper 30s with his points. So we'll see, and he could drop a lot when Chris Paul gets in there, just as they start to figure things out. You're like, hey man, I need to touch the ball. I need to, it's just my angle that I'm pursuing in cross sports this year, and there's a bunch of them. You could guys that follow golf. There's all kinds of possibilities out there, and I find them very interesting. And a lot of them are going to go up this week, so this is not like old stuff.
Yeah, I would add to Richard's point too. I've heard a lot of bookmakers talk over the week saying that they understand certain things, but remember they're booking to the public too. So, they do understand certain effects and they do understand certain things are going to happen, but they don't always, they cook some of that into the line. Certainly they cook some of that into the line, but not necessarily to full effect.
And Harden is a classic sell high spot either way right now. Has he ever been perceived of as any better than he is right at this time? He's on an epic run.
Thank you, Frank B. Thank you, Anthony Curtis. Thank you, Richard Munchkin. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.